Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 1. And Chapter 1 is called The Sociological Perspective. Now, as we move through this chapter, I'm going to encourage you that everything that is in white letters, you're going to want to write down. That's what you're going to need to know for exams and for homework. So if you see the PowerPoint, don't feel like you have to write down every single thing, and if you're not sure what to write down, it is everything that is in white letters. You don't have to start with this. This is just the introductory screen. Welcome to Sociology. I'm Mr. Rodriguez, and I look forward to introducing you to all of the chapters. So let's get started with introducing you to sociology, what it is, all the little details. So it says up here, does free will exist? That's a good question. And here we see a famous statue of the thinker. Do we have free will? Well, the thing about free will is we are influenced by all of these outside forces which shape our opinion and our view of the world. So by the time we get to be 18, 19, and start creating independent thoughts, we're already have been influenced by decades. And sociology is the study of all of these things that influence our thoughts. So what could possibly influence your behavior? What could we possibly write down? Well, let's start off by saying sociology equals influence. What could influence the world around you? Of course, we can say family. Our family influences the way that we think and we behave. When I was a very young man, right away, my mother told me that when I grew up, I was going to go to college. She started saying that from when I was in kinder. So for the example of family, we're going to use the example that I knew that I was going to go to college from when I was very, very young, because my mother made it a point for me to know it. The culture around us shapes our idea of what is fun and how do we spend our free time. Down here in South Texas, a big deal is made out of barbecuing. If you have free time, you're probably going to go and be invited to a barbecue. And the thing is, your perception of what to eat at a barbecue is going to be shaped because of where you're raised. If you're raised in South Texas, you're going to think, well, we're going to have fajitas, right? In other parts of the country, they're not making fajitas. They're making hamburgers. They're making bratwurst, maybe steaks. But because you're raised in South Texas, or if you are from South Texas, your concept of a barbecue is different than everyone else. Culture, family. What else could influence our behavior? The media, obviously, influences our behavior and the hobbies and the passions that are happening throughout the country. For the media, I remember I went to the movies and I saw this movie, and when I saw it, I knew that everyone was going to start doing this hobby. And I remember I saw, let's write down The Fast and the Furious. I knew that everybody was going to start souping up their cars and making the engines more powerful, and sure enough, this movie was so successful, everyone started fixing up their cars. So the media is a huge influence on our behavior. The social class that we belong to also is a huge indicator of what we think. What is our reference point? What do we think is normal? So for example, when I was growing up, I was eating a lot of fideo. It is very inexpensive, and I thought that everyone was eating it all the time, just like I was. And then when I got older, I realized that wasn't true. It was only true at my house or other people that were on a budget. Social class was limiting the variety of food, and therefore I ate fideo all the time. And when I got older, I realized, oh, well, it's because we're on a very tight budget. The last one I want to talk about is your birth order. If you're born first, second, third, or fourth, that's going to influence the way your parents treat you. Generally speaking, the child that is born last usually is spoiled. And the one that is born first gets the most responsibilities. Now, are there exceptions? Of course there are. But generally speaking, that is the pattern. So here are just a few examples that you should know in reference to being influenced. So that leads us to this term, the sociological imagination. If you want to know why does an individual behave in that way, why do they do what they do? Well, you got to look at, well, what is their birth order? Are they the baby of the family? Why does he barbecue in that way? Well, where is he from? It's the ability to see the societal patterns that influence people. That's what the sociological imagination is. For example, from the previous slide, if we see that sales are going up for car parts and people are souping up their cars and making them faster, you can say, well, what's going on? Why is this happening all of a sudden? And then you can see, oh, I can see the movie came out and it influenced everyone's behavior. Here are two pictures. And for those of you that have seen the movie Shrek, he says that ogres are just like onions because you can peel several layers. And when you remove those layers, the total of those layers make up an individual. Well, ironically, what Shrek said about ogres is true of everyone. We are all made up of different layers, and sociology is the study of all of the layers that make up the bulk of who we are. This is referred to as social location. It's the group memberships that we hold in society, like what is your race? What is your gender? What is your religion? How about your political affiliation? All of these things, these different components, just like an onion, these different layers ultimately make up the total and sum of who we are. Let's look at the academic disciplines. Where does sociology fit? I mean, we all know about history and math, but where does sociology fit in? That's a good question. So let's talk about, there's two types of sciences. There are the natural sciences, and they're called the hard sciences. What does that mean? Does this mean that these classes are more difficult? Not necessarily. It doesn't reflect that at all. This is the study of the universe by the laws of nature. I'm talking about biology. I'm talking about chemistry. So these are the courses that when I was in school, these were my least favorite courses, the hard sciences. What I preferred were the social sciences or the soft sciences. Now, what is hard sciences versus soft? I'm going to talk about the difference, and you're going to have to know the difference between these two types of sciences, and I'll tell you that in a bit. But the social sciences are social life in groups and individually, like sociology and like psychology. The differences between these two subjects is that one of them is always 100% accurate. The other is only mostly accurate most of the time. When we're talking about a class that is accurate 100% of the time, we're talking about the natural sciences, we're talking about biology, we're talking about chemistry. But when we're studying people and people's behavior, we can only kind of say this is mostly what happens because, yes, there are exceptions in the social sciences. Whenever we talk about something and if I give an example, you will always be able to give me an exception. And that's just how it is with the social sciences. Exceptions. Let's write down the social sciences. They have exceptions. Yes, we're looking at facts that happen and we're looking at things that are mostly true, but ultimately there are exceptions. See, this is in blue, so that means you don't have to write this down. It says most people who have a GED are low income. That's probably mostly true, but I bet you we can find people with a GED who are very wealthy. College graduates have good jobs. I bet you we could find college graduates that are struggling to find a job or that don't have any job. So the social sciences have exceptions. That's important to remember when we're studying people, their behavior, and patterns. So let's look at the social sciences. We haven't even defined the sociology yet. And here's the definition. It says here, the study of people influenced by groups, society. And we're always looking for patterns, right? When I showed you the pattern from the very first slide, we saw a pattern. What happened when The Fast and the Furious was released? What happens many times when a family is on a lower social income? They're probably going to get very inexpensive food that will feed a lot of people. Or if you're born the youngest of all your siblings, chances are that person could be a little more spoiled. Those are the patterns that we're looking for. Now, on another note, I want you to know the difference between psychology and psychiatry. People take sociology and they take psychology, and maybe they don't know the difference, and they don't know what is the difference between psychiatry. And let's talk about the differences. One of these two can give you medicine, one of them cannot. Who can give you medicine? Is it a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Psychology, study of mental processes and behavior. Psychiatry, study treatment of mental disorders with medicine. It's not a social science because we're talking about medicine in here. So there you have it, the difference between sociology, psychology, and psychiatry.